Hello and welcome, friends. My name is Aditya Pawar, and let's start our journey to the universe. So, in this episode, this is our second lecture of our technical series in black holes. So, the main topic of this lecture is that I am going to discuss a phenomenon in black hole which is called space-time singularities. So, this is our second lecture in our technical series. So, let's start. In this lecture, we are going to talk about the space-time singularities. So, first of all, what is a singularity? So, singularity is a region of space-time where the matter is curved out infinitesimally around in the fabric of space-time. So, at the singularity, which is at the center of the black hole, it curves the space so much that it reaches to a finite point or infinitesimal point, which is neither extended nor created. So, how does this singularity curve the space-time's curvature? So, as we all know that to curve the space-time we need a mass. We need a mass of object with a mass. So any body which has a mass would also create its own gravity, as we know from the Newton's laws of motions. So as this gravity is created, some energy is stored in that repulsion of curvature. So this energy creates its own gravitational attraction. So gravity creates its own source, and hence it creates continuously sources until it reaches a finite point. So this visualization can be taken as if you take that gravity of energy created from outside space, and then that gravity is then once more created again, because gravity is its own source inside black holes, and then one more created. So this layers up. Hence gravitational force is proportional to curvature of space-time. As much gravity is there as the curvature increases. So hence space-time singularities have the most infinitesimal curvature in them. Now, why are these located in black holes? So there are two main theories of these lectures. So the first theory predicts that a singularity is formed by the collapse of a star. I am coming to that. And the second theory is that singularity is formed between the explosion of a supernova. So let's do our first theory. So the first theory says that as the star has formed, we all know that the star cycle of a star cycle, that when a star is formed, I am going to do a brief introduction for only the life cycle of a star. So the star is formed because of the matter, the two primordial gases, hydrogen and helium. These gases are fused within the gravitational force, hence creating the stars. So there are two types or two branches of stars, which are, the first one is giant stars and the second one are supergiant stars. So in the giant stars, we can take a normal star like our sun, one solar mass star. So that solar mass star gets a little bigger and little hotter. As it does that, it increases its volume to a little bit and the entropy to a little bit, and then it directly fuses into a white dwarf or a black hole. But they would be have a certain radius which is called a Schwarzschild radius. So in the second phase, which is the giant stars, there are normally stars which are 10 or million to billion stars of the solar masses of the sun. So now these stars gets fused with the same materials and gravitational force. So they also create a curvature. in the space-time fabric. As these stars evaluate because of creating and fusing nuclear synthesis, these stars grow widely and also fuse many things. Hence, they grow bigger and bigger. So, from the energy value, you have understood that as the star is sighted, it turns from the yellow right side. Then, as it grows to the extent, the last phase of that is the blue, which is the hottest stars in our universe. So as the star has reached its extreme life or the end life of the star, which you call, which is after billion or million years. As this star reaches its that life, so you have only little part of portion which is been created. So like that, you have been created this, and then the matter and all things are fused into this. Hence, at the very core of the star, every gases are building and building higher entropies with higher temperature. So as this core is gets very heavy and forms iron, which we call in chemical name Fe. As this form iron, the star continuously collapses into a certain radius, which I have called Schwarzschild radius. So to understand Schwarzschild radius, see my earlier video in this series, the first lecture, which is Hawking radiation. So as this star creates the iron ball at the core of it, the whole surface of the star contracts into itself, which we call due to the phenomenon of gravitational collapse. So to understand this, the visualization, as the star has its core and it produces layers of another cores outside the spherical core. So as this core is being there, so the core produces its own gravity, as we have understood it from the laws of electromagnetism, because the core has feasibly hard electrons and all the matter clumped into it. Hence it creates a much more and much more curvature in the fabric of space-time. Hence it distributes all to the other cores, and then uh, they create the inner pressure which outstracts the outer pressure, as we have understood from the Bernoulli's experiment. So the inner pressure and outer pressure counterbalances the whole weight and the whole life cycle of the star. After this extreme reach, the inner core loses its energy to produce more gravitational force, the inner pressure, and hence collapses into it itself. Hence, the outer pressure gets more fatter and fatter and produces more energy to enrich the inner core. So the whole mass of the star is collapsed into a certain radius, and it collapses and collapses, forming a new equilibrium state. So as this state is created and it collapses more to a, there are two limits now. So the first limit is Chandrasekhar limit and the second limit is Schwarzschild metric. So as it reaches the Chandrasekhar limit to a star proposed by Subramaniam Chandrasekhar in the 1970s, as it goes down to that certain temperature, the all the mass of the star which has been collapsed into gravitational collapse goes and makes the white dwarf. Now, as this white dwarf, now the second one is Schwarzschild metric. All this matter in the second phase is going and crushed down more than the white dwarf, and thus creates the Schwarzschild metric, a certain radius, which I have already given the formula, which is R subset S is equal to 2m divided by c square. So this is the formula for Schwarzschild radius, or you can see the whole version on my left side. So now, as this whole process is done, the formation of the very black holes start to take place. As the black hole has done that, every matter or every vicinity which is around the black hole gets sucked and all the matter is come into the new formed black hole. So this is the baby black hole. As this black hole ages and ages, as because black hole's life cycle is 10 or 100 times of the cycle of the star, which is approximated till now, which is 10 to the power of 100 years. So at this time, as it reaches million, the according to Hawking radiation of the black body radiation, the black hole's thermal radiation, it gives off heat, as I have said in the earlier video. So it gives off heat and produces particles. We only know that it consumes particle, but in the 1960s, Roger Penrose and Stephen Hawking had calculated the singularity theorems, which said that a certain radius at the event horizon would also emit photons, not only absorb them, also emit. So this process is done now. And now now we come to the crucial part of space-time singularities. So to understand them, first understand that we have a Euclidean space-time geometry, and in this whole video or your part of research, you only have to understand that the space-time fabric is a 3D curvature or 3D space-time. If you understand it lower or higher, your calculations would be wrong or would turn out to be wrong. Hence, if you are dealing with space-time singularities or any regions of black holes, some of regions have 3D spacetimes and some have to be done at 4D spacetime, not greater or not less. So this space-time singularities understand the cylindrical passage. Now, like I have already earlier said, this cylindrical passage and then a central line or the central singularity. So this is for a non-rotating and uncharged black holes for Schwarzschild metric. This is the Schwarzschild black hole. So this is the cylindrical surface, which is the event horizon of our imaginary black hole, and there is a central line which is the singularity of our non-rotating and uncharged Schwarzschild black hole. So now there are light rays emitted as this black hole was being formed. There was light rays emitted. So as this black hole gain and fully forms, the light rays reaching it would curve down to a circular orbit, which we call a ergosphere of the black hole, which is a safe zone. So how this ergosphere is a safe zone? How did we find out that this is a safe zone? So the ergosphere is a safe zone because I have already told that a supermassive black hole has some region between the event horizon and the singularity. So this region is called the ergosphere, which is the wholly spherically symmetric space-time. So there is this much region, but in the primordial black holes you have less region, which creates that the observer is going to die quickly due to the tidal deformations. Hence you have this so many area between the event horizon and singularity, which is called the ergosphere. According to the laws of quantum mechanics, Schrodinger's equation, any particle reaching it would also curve to the circular orbit of the black hole because of the ergosphere. As a black hole has gained 10 times or 100 times the gravitational attraction far away from the black hole. So as the light reaches, it would curve and go into the black hole directly. But if the light has so much speed, then it would only orbit, not escape, only orbit the black hole. And this orbiting around the black hole is called frame dragging. So in frame dragging, what happens is that the initial frame of reference which you have taken, so imagine that you or your friend, whichever person, he or she is the particle photon and is going towards this circular orbit. So you are continuously rotating, hence to your perspective there is nothing happening outside or inside the black holes. Sorry, you can't see inside the black holes, it would violate the rules of physics. You can't see anything outside the black holes because you are also moving around the black holes, but you have to be stationary. Sorry, you have to be at rest according to Newton's laws of motion. Anything at rest will be at rest, and anything in motion will be at motion until and unless added external force. Hence the moving observer will continue to move with that speed. But imagine that third concept, that directly that observer is the initial frame of observer gains speed and throws out from the circular orbit, so you can escape the black hole. So this was the full explanation I was going to explain to you when I was understanding this black visualization of black holes. So as this observer gets out, it creates light cones. So I have already discussed in my previous videos that a light cone is the reaching and distortion or uh, refraction of light, which that light cone is getting distorted and distorted until it is to the singularity. As it has gained speed, the light cone also has gained speed and extended shear, which we call shear transformation, extended and get out, escape. So this was the whole process and visualization of black holes. Now, as this space-time singularity, physicists and philosophers have many great deals and have many confusions between them, because you can't take a space-time singularity because it would violate some things. Hence, physicists and philosophers created a new term, which was a singular space-time. According to the null geodesics, which I have already talked, that visualization was a part of the null geodesics. The light cones were a part of null geodesics. As the light cones were reaching to infinity or escaping to infinity, they were creating new equilibrium states, or were directly time traveling to a different state or different dimensions or space times. Hence they escape, because that normally we can't escape and it is a hypothetical research. Hence we can't do that because it is hypothetical. We have only formulated how it can be done. So as his observers get out, they are free, they are in free fall. So now we have discussed our whole visualization series. Now coming to that part of null geodesics. So null geodesics is that the geodesic or perihelion or aphelion, which we have discussed, that a small example was that the sun and the earth orbiting it. So in some months the earth is very close to the sun, hence called perihelion, and at times the earth is very far, the farthest reach from the sun, which is called aphelion. So like that, objects also rotate around black holes, which we call the path or geodesics in more technical form. So this geodesic incompleteness is very interesting, but it is very complicated till Roger Penrose. So thanks for watching my video. This was our whole lecture series. I have rain. I think I have explained you the whole concept of space-time singularities, dumped down so little that even intermediate learners and basic learners can understand. This research was a full of equations and fully done this. If you want more series like that of space-time singularities, if you are interested, then you can say according to your perspectives, you can say or give give the comment down to exceed or make more series like in this space-time singularities. So thank you for watching. Like the video, subscribe the video, share this to your friends to gain more knowledge, and comment down below how do you like this video and what do you want more series or more videos to be extended. And till then, see you in the next video. Peace.